Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with my impressions for Mass Effect Andromeda after 10 hours through the EA Access program. Now I'm sure a couple of you guys out there have invested in this program as well, it's pretty useful, but anyway, that means I did not receive a review copy for this title sadly, so I'm going to be a little bit behind other reviewers out there, but that's okay because I know you guys just wanted to hear my thoughts about this game since I was pretty skeptical about it entering the launch of it, and honestly, even after 10 hours, I still sort of am, where I'm at the verdict of I need to see more right now, and take that as both a good and a bad thing. It's good because it's like, damn, I kind of want to see more to see how much better this gets, but it's also bad in the sense where it's like, I want to see more because I don't know if this could end up being something worse. As always, I kindly ask that you guys listen to all my thoughts on this game before leaving your comments, and we'll be doing things a little bit differently this time because usually I just go through a pros and cons list, but this time I'm also going to be including a neutral stance on some things that I do need to see evolve, and then when my full review comes out, we'll recap all that stuff and more. So let's start off with the cons. There is pop-in from time to time, mainly with objects I've noticed throughout the map where I'm entering buildings and seeing little things pop up. I'm seeing things on rooftops randomly pop up. It can be a bit distracting from time to time. Nothing that really did detract from my experience though. The thing that really did make me go, wait, what the fuck, was when I saw companions just bang, magic trick appear right in front of me. It happened all too much, and sometimes it was because Cora is a vanguard, so she'll zip around the map, but a lot of the times I'll just be walking and boom, they'll just appear right there in front of me, and it just makes me think, okay, that kind of sucked me right out of the experience. Let's talk about the facial animations. It's something that every reviewer is going to have to cover with this game because it's become such a giant controversy. I don't think they're as bad as they're made out to be, if I'm quite honest. I've seen the comparison videos, trust me, I know how bad they can be, and they aren't as bad, but still, they are bad. They're definitely a downgrade from BioWare's previous title, Dragon Age Inquisition, where they are actually pretty good for a game of that scale. I know some will say that if the story and the gameplay are good, then who cares about these facial animations? And I do agree with that statement to an extent, but here's how I think about it. BioWare games are very, very conversation heavy. You're going to be spending a lot of time talking to people in this game, and that's when this facial animation problem does become a lot more apparent, showing just how dated they are compared to other games out there. It doesn't live up to the quality that we expect from these types of games with the facial animation. Lip sync is decent, but really it comes to the eyebrows and the eyes themselves that don't look natural at all. Like I said, it's not all the time, and if I'm brutally honest, it's just been an overblown issue on the internet, no surprise there, but it's still definitely a problem and something BioWare is going to have to fix, just it's not as bad as I really saw out there from a lot of articles. But the reason there's a problem is because the issue constantly presents itself over and over and over because you're always talking to people in a BioWare game, so now you can see most likely why that's a problem. I believe that the issue stems from the same facial animations being used on humans as they are on aliens. Take for example when you're communicating with a Solarian, you expect them to have bug eyes, a pretty blank stare, but all that's moving is their mouth. It makes sense considering the fact of how they speak and how they act around you. Meanwhile, when you see that same thing on a human, it just doesn't look natural. And like I said, I think that's because there's the same animation where even when I'm talking to a Turian or a Krogan, it feels and looks natural and I don't get distracted, but when I'm talking to a human, all bets are off. How about the main story? Well, I felt I never really got it going during the trial. There were some interesting reveals, such as when you first board the Nexus, which I'm not going to spoil for you guys, but these reveals felt few and far between. Now, I will blame myself to a degree because I did get distracted quite a bit with side content, talking to everyone I could, but there were some times when I was about to get to an interesting reveal and my trial ended. So the setup is there, and that's once again why I'm saying I need to see more, because I'm not gripped right now, but who knows if after this setup and how things start to evolve, I'm definitely intrigued, but it could get worse or it could get better. The last con I wanted to cover is the limitations of the character creation, not only for myself, where I think there hasn't been a very good custom rider out there, but also how it carries over to the human NPCs, making them look a smidge silly at times. But also, there's a limited amount of, I think 11 or 12 hairstyles for both sexes, meaning that you'll be able to quickly identify that it is definitely someone from the character creation engine rather than someone naturally in the universe. And I know that sounds a little ridiculous because a lot of these types of games do use the character creator to create their NPCs, but it looks so unnatural, and most importantly, it looks fake, which is also a thing that ties into the facial animations, that a lot of these characters look very plasticky, very unrealistic, which contradicts one of the first pros I wanted to get into for this game, is that it is downright gorgeous. I played on PC and it ran smooth the entire time, 60 FPS all the way. Its use of the color palette is exquisite. These planets feel diversified. They feel interesting to explore because of how BioWare built them in the terms of visuals, where you'll see something in the distance and be able to track it down and explore it to its entirety. Really, they did a great job using the visuals to their best advantage with this engine. The biggest pro I wanted to focus on, though, is the side quest improvement I've noticed so far, considering how much I did not like Inquisitions. I've said it to redundancy, so I'm going to stop there. But an example was a murder mystery I encountered on the Nexus. I'm not going to go any further than that, but you'll come across stuff like this that I really enjoyed. It had a lot of context to it. There were the quests here and there that would involve you collecting something of this or scanning X amount of bodies, and don't get me wrong, I rolled my eyes a bit with that, but it wasn't nearly as bad as Inquisition. But as it stands alone as a game itself, not just in comparison to Inquisition, it still is a vast improvement for BioWare. I felt intrigued, there was a story behind it that kept me going, it wasn't forced. Overall, side quests definitely have improved. In fact, I did find myself a bit more invested in the side content compared to the main quest, but once again, that's because I'm left curious about the main quest, while the side content I was able to fully explore to my desire. Another great pro about this game that I did mention earlier is there's lots of dialogue, lots of interaction, lots of questions. It's great stuff, man. I love my conversations in my RPGs, and being able to fire away with 20 questions on almost any NPC I meet of importance was a thing of beauty, especially the fact that you can romance most people you meet. I thought that was a cool little touch there, but still, being able to really flush out the lore with this game, ask questions, learn about these characters' backstory. There was a lot of thought for the dialogue in this game, and I really did enjoy it because it took me about 3 hours to actually touch down on my first planet for exploration because I was so caught up talking to everyone. Especially since there are a lot of quests that focus on not the killing, but really the story itself, so it's a lot of, once again, interaction with the world, which I enjoy quite a bit in RPGs. While we're talking about interaction, how about the companions? So far, they're making for an interesting case on the surface, except for the Turian companion Vetra, who I'm gonna need to get to know a bit more before making my decision. But like I said, lots of romance options, and they are quite interesting. I actually think Liam, out of all characters, which surprised me, was the most interesting one. So I'm looking forward to exploring his backstory more. Once again, there are loyalty missions for all these companions as you get to know them more and more. But as for the backstories for these characters, it's definitely something that caught my attention and made me want to get to know them even more. The combat, I was definitely wrong about this, ladies and gentlemen. It is fun. It is a natural evolution for the Mass Effect franchise. As each game progressed, they added more and more mechanics to flush out the combat system, and now it's a lot more about the movement. It's about the jump jet, whether you're dashing around, and I like this a lot because it allows the game to throw more enemies your way, where you can become a lot more agile and dodge them, getting back into different areas of covers, which actually highlights some of the level design for these areas where you get into battles, showing just how flexible this combat system can be, even in the soft cover, which I surprisingly have not had any problems with in the entirety of my 10 hours. Not once was I snagged on the wrong piece of cover. It is definitely something that, like I've said in the past before, if it works great. And this is one of those times where the soft cover system works fantastically for me. And since combat is basically the main focus of the multiplayer, like I've said before, it's like Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, and this combat's great. So hey, it's fun as fuck. I'm definitely looking forward to losing lots of hours in Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer. I'll tell you what, man, this was some fun stuff. I'm looking forward to getting the squad together, sitting down, grinding away missions. They did give you a lot of currency when you won each match, which I did enjoy a little bit, so I didn't feel like I had to buy the microtransactions that are there. And lastly, let's move on to things that I sit at a neutral point with. I only experienced 2 moments where there was actual choice presented to me, like doing this or that. And the quantity is fine, because what I'm curious about is if there will be consequence, which is key to choice in games, as we know. If they do, then the role-playing aspect is going to be a huge deal breaker for many people who will want to play this game. The game does a great job of remembering things you've done, such as little conversation options, but I'm talking about the choices that impact someone else around you, not just something you've said in conversation in passing. But if they mention those, I'm going to assume, so far, hopefully not to my disappointment, that they will end up having choices with repercussions. Fingers crossed on that one, because we've had our share of disappointments with games that really don't care about the choices you make and just offer an illusion. Now, I'm not trying to contradict myself here. While the combat is awesome, that is because I have zeroed in on an adept playthrough, which feels more like the traditional Mass Effect experience. I have yet to unlock a bunch of different profiles to swap between mid-combat, like which was promoted during this game's launch cycle, but based off initial impressions, I'm sure I'm going to like that aspect, but still, that's something I have yet to explore. I did unlock the Vanguard one, but that didn't give me access to, for example, switching between Engineer and then Vanguard, so you get what I'm saying, where I have yet to do those drastic changes in combat that could make a big difference in how I feel about it. Also, my initial impressions of the conversations themselves are great, but I'm still feeling out the 4-pillar moral decision system. There are still typical Mass Effect interruptions, which I was very happy to see, but obviously, as we know, they're not aligned to Paragon or Renegade anymore, and I do like this system because it allows me to simply be myself, not good or bad. With that said though, nothing really tailors to being a douche, but I believe that's where the interruptions step in, because the only interruption I encountered was pushing PB off of you in an aggressive fashion, which would tailor to someone trying to be an asshole. The other pillars are casual, professional, logical, and emotional. I've mostly related to the logical responses thus far throughout the entire game, and the game does keep track of all those types of decisions you make throughout. But I'm yet to see any type of payback for example, investing in a logical tree or being more of an emotional human being. I'm yet to see what happens if you keep going down that pathway, or is it just I'm playing how I want to be? Once again, something I'm gonna have to feel out throughout the entire title. And the same could be said for the music and voice acting. For the most part, I was going through the motions, but there were some standout pieces. There were some moments of voice acting that felt very powerful, but for the most part, as I said, I was going through the motions. So I'm really hoping that things start to ramp up in that regard there. My initial impressions of this game, as you can tell, are quite mixed. I have a lot of good things to say. I also have some bad things to say about the title, and I do have to see how certain things go with the remainder of my time with the game. My fingers are crossed that everything continues to get better and not worse. Right now I'm at a point of uncertainty, and I have no doubts that this game is going to be one of those titles that launches and you're going to have reviewers who love it, you're going to have reviewers who hate it, and you're going to have reviewers who are like, this is just a mixed bag. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the title in the comments down below. As always, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook, the links are in the description down below. Do consider contributing to the Patreon. It helps fuel all the content we create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.